Respect is not something you ask for, negotiate for, or desperately hope to receive. It is something you silently communicate through your behavior. The greatest mistake people make is believing that kindness alone will earn admiration. They spend their lives trying to please everyone, agreeing with opinions they secretly reject, apologizing for taking up space, and constantly seeking approval. Ironically, the more they chase acceptance, the less they are respected. Human nature has always followed a different set of rules. People instinctively admire those who appear complete within themselves, not those who depend on the opinions of others for their sense of worth. The moment you stop living for applause, something changes in the way people perceive you. Your decisions become firmer, your voice becomes steadier, your actions become intentional rather than reactive. You are no longer trying to convince the world that you deserve a place in it. You simply behave as if you already do. This quiet certainty is difficult to ignore because confidence is contagious. People naturally gravitate toward those who seem secure in their own identity. One of the most powerful psychological truths is that people test your self-worth before deciding how much they should value you. These tests are often subtle. Someone interrupts you while you're speaking. A colleague dismisses your opinion. A friend repeatedly ignores your time and boundaries. Many people respond by becoming even more accommodating, hoping to restore harmony, yet every unnecessary compromise silently communicates that your own standards are negotiable. Respect begins to disappear the moment you teach others that you are willing to abandon yourself for their comfort. Robert Greene often emphasizes that power begins with self-mastery. Before anyone else believes in your value, you must believe it yourself. This does not mean boasting, demanding attention, or announcing your importance. Those behaviors usually reveal insecurity rather than strength. Genuine confidence is quiet. It does not need constant recognition because it is rooted in inner conviction rather than external praise. Imagine two individuals entering the same room. One immediately tries to impress everyone, laughs at every joke, agrees with every opinion, and constantly looks around for approval. The other enters calmly, listens carefully, speaks only when there is something meaningful to say, and never changes their personality to fit the expectations of the crowd. Without realizing it, most people will assign greater respect to the second individual. Why? Because independence signals value. Someone who does not desperately seek attention appears to possess something far more valuable than popularity, self-respect. This principle extends into every area of life. In relationships, those who constantly chase affection often lose it because their desperation removes the mystery and strength that naturally attract people. In the workplace, employees who quietly produce exceptional results without begging for recognition eventually become indispensable. In leadership, the strongest leaders are rarely the loudest. They earn authority through consistency, discipline, and unwavering belief in their own judgment. True strength also requires accepting that not everyone will like you. This is one of the hardest lessons for most people to embrace. The desire to be universally admired is deeply rooted in human nature, but it is also a trap. Every attempt to satisfy everyone forces you to betray some part of yourself. Eventually, people stop seeing authenticity and begin seeing someone who constantly changes to fit the room. Authenticity earns respect because it demonstrates courage. Pretending earns temporary approval, but rarely lasting admiration. When you stop measuring your worth by compliments, likes, promotions, or constant reassurance, you become emotionally independent. That independence transforms your posture, your decisions, and your relationships. You no longer tolerate disrespect simply because you fear losing someone. You no longer apologize for having standards. You understand that your value is determined by your character, your discipline, and your actions, not by the opinions of those around you. The ruthless truth is simple. People rarely respect those who constantly seek respect. They respect those who carry themselves with quiet confidence. unwavering principles, and complete ownership of their own worth. The strongest message you can ever send is not spoken through words. It is demonstrated by living as though your self-respect is something no one else has the power to give or take away. The quickest way to lose respect is to become a prisoner of your emotions. Most people believe power comes from speaking louder, reacting faster, or proving they are right. In reality, power belongs to the person who remains calm while everyone else loses control. Human beings are constantly observing one another, searching for signs of strength and weakness. Few weaknesses are more revealing than emotional impulsiveness. The person who cannot control anger, frustration, fear, or anxiety unconsciously hands control of the situation to others. The moment someone can predict your emotional reactions, they can manipulate your decisions. Robert Greene often points to self-mastery as the foundation of influence. Before you can lead others, you must first lead yourself. Emotional discipline is not about suppressing every feeling or pretending that nothing affects you. It is about refusing to allow temporary emotions to dictate permanent decisions. Anger may feel powerful in the moment, but uncontrolled anger often destroys opportunities that took years to build. A single emotional outburst can erase the image of competence and reliability that you spent months creating. Think about the individuals who naturally command respect. They rarely rush to defend themselves. They do not panic when criticized. They do not explode over small inconveniences. Their composure creates an invisible shield. Others begin to assume that someone so calm must possess confidence, experience, and authority. Whether that assumption is entirely true becomes almost irrelevant because perception shapes reality. People judge your inner strength by your outward reactions. Life constantly presents moments designed to provoke you. Someone insults your abilities. A coworker takes credit for your work. A stranger treats you disrespectfully. Your first instinct may be to respond immediately, to prove your point, or to win the argument. Yet instant reactions usually satisfy the ego rather than serve your long-term interests. The disciplined person pauses. They allow emotion to settle before deciding whether the situation deserves a response at all. This pause is where true power exists. Silence can often be more intimidating than anger. When someone expects you to react emotionally and you remain composed instead, you disrupt their expectations. They lose the ability to predict your next move. Uncertainty creates psychological pressure. Many conflicts end before they truly begin, simply because one person refuses to become emotionally available for manipulation. Emotional control also protects your judgment. Fear often convinces people to settle for less than they deserve. Excitement causes them to make promises they cannot keep. Jealousy distracts them from their own progress. Pride prevents them from admitting mistakes. Every unchecked emotion narrows perception and weakens decision-making. The individual who can recognize these emotional impulses without immediately obeying them gains a tremendous advantage over those who act on every feeling. This discipline requires practice. It begins by observing yourself honestly. Notice what consistently triggers frustration, insecurity, or defensiveness. Instead of blaming other people, study your reactions. Every emotional trigger reveals an area where greater self-control is needed. Once you understand your own patterns, you become far more difficult to manipulate because your responses become intentional instead of automatic. There is also strength in refusing to explain yourself excessively. Many people react to criticism by desperately defending every decision they make. They seek validation from those who have already judged them. Calm confidence takes a different approach. It recognizes that not every accusation deserves an answer, and not every opinion deserves attention. Sometimes the strongest response is continued excellence. Results have a way of silencing critics more effectively than arguments ever could. People instinctively respect those who remain steady during uncertainty. In moments of pressure, everyone looks for someone whose emotions are under control. That individual becomes the emotional anchor for the group. Their calm presence communicates reliability, maturity, and quiet authority. This is why leaders, negotiators, athletes, and successful entrepreneurs train themselves to remain composed even when circumstances become chaotic. The ruthless psychological truth is that your emotions are always speaking, even when your mouth is silent. Every impulsive reaction reveals insecurity, while every measured response communicates strength. The person who masters their emotions gains something far more valuable than winning arguments. They gain influence, credibility, and the kind of respect that cannot be demanded because it is earned through unwavering self-control. One of the clearest signs of self-respect is the ability to establish boundaries without guilt. Most people struggle with this because they confuse boundaries with selfishness. They fear that saying no will make them appear rude, difficult, or unkind. As a result, they agree to things they do not want to do, tolerate behavior they secretly resent, and sacrifice their own peace to avoid disappointing others. Ironically, the more they abandon their own limits, the less they are valued. Respect begins to disappear the moment people realize they can continually cross your boundaries without consequence. Robert Greene often illustrates that power is not merely about gaining control over others, but about refusing to surrender control over yourself. Every unnecessary compromise weakens your position. Every time you allow someone to disrespect your time, ignore your standards, or manipulate your emotions, you silently teach them that your needs are secondary. Human nature quickly adapts to whatever behavior you consistently permit. People rarely stop at the first violation. They continue pushing until they discover where your limits truly exist. The strongest individuals do not announce their boundaries with anger or threats. They communicate them through consistent actions. They do not endlessly explain why they cannot do something. They simply decline when necessary and remain comfortable with the temporary discomfort that follows. This calm certainty creates an impression of strength because it reveals that their decisions are guided by principles rather than by the fear of losing approval. Many people believe they must provide long explanations every time they refuse a request. They apologize repeatedly, invent excuses, or attempt to soften every decision with unnecessary reassurance. Yet excessive explanation often signals uncertainty. It invites negotiation and encourages others to challenge your decision. A simple, respectful response delivered with confidence is usually far more powerful than a lengthy defense. The less you feel compelled to justify yourself, the more others recognize that your choices deserve respect. Your time is one of your most valuable assets. Unlike money, it can never be recovered once it is spent. Yet many people give their time away freely to those who neither appreciate nor respect it. They allow constant interruptions, unnecessary obligations, and one-sided relationships to consume their days. Over time, they become exhausted and resentful, not because others demanded too much, but because they never established limits. Those who protect their time send a powerful psychological message. They communicate that their life has purpose and that access to their attention must be earned rather than assumed. Boundaries are equally important in relationships. There will always be individuals who test your patience, question your standards, or expect endless forgiveness without changing their behavior. If every act of disrespect is ignored, it gradually becomes the new normal. What was once unacceptable soon becomes expected. Respect survives only when your actions consistently reinforce your values. Walking away from repeated disrespect is not an act of cruelty. It is an act of preservation. There is also a deeper psychological effect at work. People often admire what they cannot easily control. When you become someone who cannot be manipulated through guilt, pressure, or emotional blackmail, others begin to approach you differently. They recognize that your decisions are not driven by fear of rejection, but by clarity of purpose. This independence naturally increases your influence because people understand that your agreement has genuine value. If your answer is always yes, your yes becomes meaningless. If your approval is automatic, it loses significance. Setting boundaries also requires accepting that some people will become uncomfortable with the new version of you. Those who benefited from your lack of limits may accuse you of changing or becoming distant. In reality, they are reacting to the loss of unrestricted access rather than to any injustice. This is a difficult truth to accept, but it reveals who respected you as a person and who merely appreciated your willingness to sacrifice yourself for their convenience. The ruthless psychological reality is that boundaries are not walls meant to isolate you from others. They are standards that define how you expect to be treated. Every calm refusal, every protected hour, and every decision made without guilt strengthens your self-respect. In turn, that self-respect reshapes how the world responds to you. People instinctively value those who value themselves enough to protect their time, their energy, and their principles without apology. The most influential people are rarely the ones who speak the most. They are the ones whose words carry weight because they have learned that silence is often more powerful than constant conversation. In a world where everyone is competing to be heard, the person who speaks with purpose immediately stands apart. Robert Greene frequently emphasizes that mystery is a form of power. The less people know about your thoughts, plans, and emotions, the less they can predict, manipulate, or undermine you. Speaking less is not about becoming distant or unfriendly. It is about understanding that every unnecessary word can weaken your position, while carefully chosen words strengthen it. Many people make the mistake of believing that talking more makes them appear intelligent, confident, or important. In reality, excessive talking often reveals insecurity. People who constantly explain themselves, interrupt others, or dominate every conversation usually do so because they seek validation. They fear silence because they believe it will make them seem unnoticed. Yet human psychology works differently. People pay greater attention to those who do not feel the need to fill every quiet moment with words. Silence creates curiosity, and curiosity naturally attracts attention. When you speak less, you also become a better observer. While others are busy expressing every opinion, you begin noticing details they completely overlook. You observe body language, tone of voice, hesitation, confidence, and hidden motives. This information becomes a source of power because understanding people is always more valuable than simply being understood. Those who reveal everything about themselves leave little room for strategy, but those who carefully observe before speaking gain an advantage in every interaction. Every conversation is an opportunity to either increase or decrease your value in the eyes of others. People often damage their own reputation by speaking impulsively. They gossip about coworkers, reveal personal weaknesses too quickly, make promises they cannot keep, or argue over trivial matters. These habits slowly erode respect because they demonstrate a lack of discipline. Words cannot be taken back once they are spoken. A careless sentence can create lasting consequences that years of effort cannot easily repair. Precision in speech reflects precision in thought. Before speaking, disciplined individuals ask themselves whether their words will improve the conversation or merely satisfy an emotional impulse. This simple habit separates mature thinkers from reactive personalities. They do not rush to offer opinions on every topic. They choose moments when their contribution genuinely adds value. As a result, people naturally listen more carefully because they know every statement has purpose. Silence can also become a powerful response during conflict. When someone attempts to provoke you, they often expect immediate resistance. They want emotional engagement because it gives them influence over your state of mind. Refusing to react instantly denies them that control. A calm pause forces the other person to confront their own emotions while you remain composed. This unexpected restraint often carries more authority than a heated argument ever could. Speaking with confidence does not require using complicated language or dominating every discussion. It requires clarity, Strong communicators express ideas directly without unnecessary exaggeration or endless explanations. They understand that confidence is demonstrated through certainty, not through the number of words used. A short, thoughtful statement often has far greater impact than a long speech filled with repetition. Listening is another overlooked source of influence. People naturally trust those who make them feel heard. When you listen carefully instead of preparing your next response, you gain valuable insight into what motivates others. You discover their ambitions, insecurities, fears, and priorities. This knowledge allows you to communicate more effectively because your words address what truly matters rather than what you assume matters. There is also an undeniable sense of authority surrounding those who are comfortable with silence. They do not rush to defend every criticism, reveal every plan, or seek attention through constant conversation. Their restraint creates an impression of confidence because it suggests they are secure enough not to compete for recognition. People instinctively associate this self-control with wisdom and competence. The ruthless psychological truth is that words gain value through scarcity. The more carefully you choose them, the more seriously others take them. Speaking less is not about withholding your voice. It is about ensuring that every sentence reflects confidence, purpose, and discipline. When your words become intentional instead of impulsive, people stop hearing noise and start listening with respect. Respect that lasts is never built on charm alone. It is built on competence. You can impress people with confidence for a few moments, but only skill, discipline, and consistent results will make that respect endure. Robert Greene repeatedly points out that true power comes from becoming so valuable that your presence cannot easily be replaced. In every field of life, people eventually look beyond appearances. They begin asking a simple question: can this person actually deliver? The answer to that question determines whether admiration fades or grows stronger over time. Many people spend enormous amounts of energy trying to appear successful instead of becoming successful. They carefully manage their image, seek recognition, and talk endlessly about their goals, yet neglect the difficult work required to develop genuine ability. Human psychology is remarkably sensitive to this difference. People may initially be attracted by confidence, but they remain loyal only to competence. Empty promises eventually lose their effect, while consistent performance quietly builds an unshakable reputation. The pursuit of mastery demands patience. Modern society encourages shortcuts, instant gratification, and quick recognition. People want respect before they have earned it. They seek leadership positions before learning responsibility. They desire influence before developing wisdom. Robert Greene warns against this impatience because lasting authority is always built slowly. Every hour spent improving your craft, studying your profession, and refining your abilities becomes an invisible investment in future respect. True competence is often developed in silence. While others seek attention through constant self-promotion, disciplined individuals focus on improving their skills behind the scenes. They understand that real confidence grows from preparation, not from empty motivation. When the opportunity finally arrives, they perform with calm certainty because their abilities have been forged through repetition rather than wishful thinking. Success appears effortless to observers only because they never witness the countless hours of unseen practice. One of the strongest psychological signals of competence is reliability. People quickly lose respect for those whose words cannot be trusted. Someone who repeatedly misses deadlines, breaks promises, or delivers inconsistent work creates uncertainty. Uncertainty destroys confidence. On the other hand, the individual who consistently fulfills commitments develops a reputation that becomes more valuable than any title or position. Reliability creates trust, and trust naturally evolves into respect. Competence also requires humility. Those who truly possess expertise rarely feel the need to prove it through constant boasting. They understand that knowledge is endless and that every achievement reveals new areas to improve. Insecure individuals often exaggerate their abilities because they fear being exposed. Skilled individuals allow their work to speak for itself. This quiet confidence is far more persuasive because it rests on evidence rather than opinion. There will always be moments when your abilities are questioned. Criticism, doubt, and competition are unavoidable. Many people respond by arguing or defending themselves with words. The wiser approach is to answer through results. Nothing silences skepticism more effectively than consistent excellence. Arguments create temporary victories, but performance creates lasting credibility. When people repeatedly witness your ability to solve problems, remain dependable, and produce high-quality work, their respect becomes almost automatic. Competence is not limited to careers or business. It extends into every area of life. A person who manages their emotions wisely, keeps their commitments, handles challenges with maturity, and continues learning demonstrates competence in character. These qualities inspire confidence because they reveal discipline rather than luck. Others naturally seek advice, leadership, and partnership from someone who has repeatedly demonstrated sound judgment through actions instead of words. Continuous learning is another essential part of mastery. The moment you believe you know everything, your growth begins to decline. The most respected individuals remain curious regardless of how much they have already achieved. They read, observe, practice, and adapt because they recognize that excellence is a moving target. This commitment to improvement keeps their abilities relevant, while others become outdated through complacency. The ruthless psychological truth is that people may admire talent, but they deeply respect mastery. Talent can attract attention, yet discipline transforms potential into undeniable value. When your competence becomes impossible to ignore, you no longer need to demand respect or chase recognition. Your consistent actions, reliable character, and exceptional results communicate your worth far more powerfully than any speech ever could. One of the greatest demonstrations of strength is knowing when to walk away. Most people believe that respect is earned by fighting for every relationship, every opportunity, and every person's approval. They cling to people who repeatedly ignore them, tolerate environments that constantly diminish their confidence, and remain loyal to those who show no loyalty in return. Robert Greene would argue that this behavior is not a sign of strength but of dependency. The fear of losing someone often becomes the very reason you lose your dignity. The moment your self-worth depends on another person's acceptance, you surrender your power to them. Human nature places a higher value on what is difficult to control. This is why people often overlook those who are always available while becoming fascinated by those who possess the confidence to leave when they are no longer respected. Walking away is not about playing manipulative games or pretending to be indifferent. It is about recognizing that your peace, dignity, and future are worth more than temporary validation. It is the quiet declaration that your standards cannot be purchased with attention or empty promises. Many people remain trapped in one-sided relationships because they mistake persistence for loyalty. They believe that if they try harder, give more, or sacrifice enough, they will eventually receive the respect they desire. Unfortunately, human psychology often works in the opposite direction. The more desperately you chase someone who consistently devalues you, the more they begin to assume that your presence is guaranteed. Familiarity without boundaries breeds complacency. When people believe they can never lose you, they stop appreciating your value. Walking away interrupts this pattern. It forces others to confront the absence of something they previously took for granted. Whether they change or not is ultimately beyond your control, and that is precisely the point. The decision to leave should never be made to manipulate someone into returning. It should be made because your self-respect no longer allows you to remain where you are repeatedly diminished. Your goal is not to create regret in others. Your goal is to preserve your own character. This principle extends far beyond personal relationships. In the workplace, there are situations where your skills are consistently ignored, your efforts are exploited, or your growth is intentionally limited. Remaining in such an environment out of fear can slowly destroy your confidence. The individual who continues developing their abilities while seeking opportunities where those abilities are valued demonstrates courage rather than recklessness. Respect often follows those who refuse to settle for environments that constantly undermine their potential. Walking away also requires emotional independence. There will always be voices telling you to hold on a little longer, to accept less than you deserve, or to ignore repeated patterns of disrespect. Emotional independence allows you to separate temporary pain from long-term well-being. You understand that loneliness is temporary, but losing your self-respect can affect every future relationship and decision. Short-term discomfort is often the price of long-term freedom. One of the most powerful psychological shifts occurs when you stop trying to convince people of your worth. Instead of arguing, pleading, or explaining yourself endlessly, you invest that energy into becoming stronger, wiser, and more disciplined. Your focus moves away from changing other people's opinions and toward improving your own life. This shift transforms your presence. You no longer radiate desperation, you radiate purpose. People instinctively notice the difference because genuine confidence is rooted in self-sufficiency rather than approval. There is also wisdom in accepting that not every battle deserves to be fought. Some people are committed to misunderstanding you. Some environments will never recognize your value. Some relationships are built on convenience rather than mutual respect. Continuing to invest yourself in these situations only drains your energy. The disciplined individual understands that every unnecessary attachment comes with an opportunity cost. Every hour spent chasing the wrong people is an hour not spent building the life you truly deserve. The ruthless psychological truth is that respect cannot be forced, begged for, or negotiated. It grows naturally around those who refuse to compromise their dignity for acceptance. When you possess the courage to walk away from repeated disrespect without bitterness or revenge, you send a message more powerful than any argument. You demonstrate that your value is not determined by who stays in your life, but by the standards you refuse to abandon. That quiet confidence becomes impossible to ignore, and it is this unwavering self-respect that commands lasting admiration from the world around you.